This is Entervoid.com's VCast. Entervoid is the world's premier comics battling website. It's a place for artists of all skill levels who love comics to hone their skills through competition and collaboration. Check us out on Entervoid.com. This episode was recorded on January 12th, 2019. Is everybody ready?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, we'll pretend I am.
Hi everyone, welcome to another VCast. This is your host Pyrasterran. I'm here with Astrodile.
I'm back again. Hey, you guys.
And William Duel.
With love in my heart and justice in my fists, William Duel is here!
That's kind of cute.
And Wirecat.
Yo.
Today we're going to be talking about the Magical Girl Team Death Tournament, where signups have just started up. What are you guys' thoughts on this tournament?
I'm excited. I just want to say that I'm looking forward to seeing the teams because I like the idea of a tag team tournament. I'm probably gonna be really sad seeing a bunch of probably little kids die, but it happens. But I'm looking forward to it, and props to Desi for setting it up.
Well, I'm a big fan of the magical girl genre, so I'm very excited, and I'm definitely looking forward to it. I'm a little sad I can't join myself, but I'm definitely excited to see what people come up with.
Yeah, I think I'm also just in general a big fan of death matches, just because it's so rough, or not, it's savage. That's the word I'm looking for. It's so savage. And also just because you have to be very creative in order to figure out a new way of killing people. So I'm interested in seeing the creativity from people and see what they come up with.
So you're just here for the murder?
Well, yeah. Well, the character designs and their character arc, and also the murder. Mainly the murder, probably, yes. But I do also like characters.
For those who don't know, one of the interesting aspects about this Magical Girl Death Tournament, we had one in the past. We had was a Prettiest Princess Death Tournament. There's a little bit of overlap, but in this case, the characters that are submitted have to be made up of teams of 2 or more. And with the new shared character system that we started last year for the Love Child Death Tournament, we now can have 2 artists come up with a team and have it owned by both of them.
I don't know if I agree that there's... Well, I guess there is overlap, but yeah, sure.
Very little overlap with the Prettiest Princess and the Magical Girl concepts.
I mean, honestly, ever since the Love Child thing tournament happened, and you made that new feature, the new feature of shared characters was made. I've been looking forward to trying that out one day with someone, because I think it's very interesting, and I'm also interested in seeing how it's going to be utilized here. As Esther also said, the teams, who is going to, go and team up with who and stuff.
Yeah. Who do we have signed up at the moment? We've got Golden and Cats or Savvy.
Yes.
Who are going to be the Team Dream.
And then there's Hellas and Yarnwitch as Team Punk. Yes?
Yes. And we got to look at those characters. If you're on the Discord, you can find those characters in the art show.
Yes.
They showed off what they're going to look like. It's going to be very interesting.
Also, I've heard that there are newcomers who are looking to join the tourney itself.
Oh yeah,
which is also exciting.
As a death tournament, any member of the site, whether or not you have a character, you can join. Just got to make the character sheet and get the team members.
Yeah, I'm glad that there's more events happening on Void, because it's a before what we had was the tag team tournaments, and that was like our only really collaborative events, and those didn't come by very often. So it's interesting to see it used more thematically this way. I'm curious.
Yeah. For those of you who don't know, signups end on February 8th, so that should give you plenty of time to find a teammate yourself so you can join in on this magical adventure.
And also, please make sure to make a reference for your characters because they won't be added to the sign-up sheet until those are made.
Yes.
Very important.
Very important. Can't join if you don't have a character.
All right, and we're going to be taking a brief break to show off an interview that we had with Camel, the Altogether Now champion.
Yay!
We'll be right back after this. First of all, thank you for giving us the opportunity to have this interview.
Well, thank you for having me.
I'm going to start right in. Can you tell us the origin story of your choice of character pairing for this tournament?
Yeah. Well, I had done the tag team tournament with Sean, Mr. Astro Sean, and we had a great time doing that. And that was with my character Klep and his character Harvey. And that was a really fun time. That was probably my favorite comics I've ever done, even though I lost. But I really enjoyed that. And then so this other tournament comes around, and I asked Sean if I could use Dale because dead characters were allowed. And I forgot to mention that the real sort of inception of this was I actually did a battle with Dale in October of, I think it was 2017 or 2016.
That's right. With the sort of the Evel Knievel story.
Yeah, that was where the pairing first kind of began. That was where the sort of alternate universe take began. And that was just, I mean, that's my favorite comic I've ever done, aside from my most recent round 2. I love that comic. And so when it came to doing it again, I thought, well, it's choice is obvious. If I'm going to be doing this, I got to go with Dale, the Radical Strawberry, with Void's. I know that there was a Void sexiest tournament, but I think we all know who the real sexiest Void character is. It's Dale. I mean, come on.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry to throw shade. Sorry.
You've been
Swan, great.
You've gotten a lot of success with these eclectic stories and alternate universe takes. Was this kind of comic decision from the start when you started working on this tournament? Yeah, with the original Dale Evel Knievel kind of story. I think I chose that because Dale and the Gravediggers are so kind of kooky and crazy that on the one hand, Dale barely has a backstory, and the Gravediggers, I really haven't fleshed it out. So I had the choice, I could try to do some sort of arc that connects those together. But when it came time to it, I just really wanted to have some fun. I just wanted to do something really wacky. And so I also want to explore Void characters in kind of more broad strokes, Mm-hmm. So it was definitely a conscious decision from the start. Yeah. When you started seeing all the characters that were lining up, were there any ideas that you started getting early on, or did you pretty much start cold turkey with each battle? No, I definitely had some ideas starting up. If I could think specifically, I definitely had an idea for, I don't know why, but something about Gray. I just wanted to do something involving fashion with Gray. I think it was because of the Void Sexiest tournament, that kind of going right hot off the heels of that. Okay. I just had fashion on the mind. But other than that, I think what I would do is, I remember I would go to work, and as I was working, I couldn't be drawing, so I would just think of scenarios for other characters that were in the tournament. And a lot of my ideas came from there. Unfortunately, I can't remember a lot off the top of my head, but
The only one I really remember vividly, aside from the gray one, was there was definitely I had an idea of like a CSI sort of thing with caps lock and shift and Chico. I definitely want to do that.
Got it.
But yeah, I was thinking of making shift be like really uber serious, and then having just some wacky antics occur. But
out of the comics that you were able to complete for this tournament, which one was the more challenging one for you?
Definitely the second round. That took some years off my life. No, not that bad. No, that was definitely the most challenging one I did. Because I doubled the page count.
Right.
And I think I doubled it. Yeah, I think 7. No, the last one's 7 pages. So I guess I didn't technically double it, but that was definitely the most challenging. Trying to have it all colored. I did do 12 pages in 1 week back in the OCT tournament in 2016, and I don't know how I did that because this was 12 pages in 2 weeks, and I almost I almost melted into the pavement. Like I was just so stressed, but that was definitely the most challenging.
Well, it paid off. That one was a very, very good comic that you pulled out. Is that one also your favorite?
Definitely, that was my favorite. Everything just, in my opinion, came together well there. There are things I would change about it if I had more time. Mainly the coloring. I had bigger plans for the colors, but once it came down to it, I just had to I had to get them out of the way. I didn't want to have no colors. I didn't really want to do anything monochromatic. But yeah. Really, to go behind the scenes, I was trying to do this fall palette for like 10 hours, and I couldn't get it to work. And I was so pissed off. I'm like, F it, I'm just doing blue. I'm just doing blue, and if it loses, all right, whatever. But did lose, so
yeah.
Don't discount blue. That's my message. Never discount blue. It's a good color. It's a great color. Sad color. Good song by forgot her name. All right, cut that out.
Yeah. Were there any new techniques you learned during this run? Anything new that you tried out that worked out for you?
Yeah. The motion, a lot of using motion specifically on my second round, the part when Sovereign Greece is drumming. I really wanted to explore using lines and motion. I actually had a lot of inspiration. I went back and I looked at Jong, aka Choleric. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but
I think that's how it is. Choleric or Choleric.
Choleric, yeah. Infamous, legendary creator, guy who made Mortito, and I was super inspired by his art, so I went back and I found a Adamantine comic he did, and that had some really fantastic motion in that, and I actually kind of studied that and got some real tips on how to use to do motion. So that was really, really helpful. And then other than that, I think I had some help. I did a figure drawing class just very recently, and so I had a little extra help with my figures. I know there's still a lot to be worked on. It's just tough, man, to draw people. I'm good at drawing skeletons and strawberries. I can't do people.
No, I get it. I have a more fun time drawing monsters and dinosaurs than drawing people.
Yeah, dude. Monsters are way more fun.
Yeah.
Who likes people? People suck. Monsters are great. They destroy buildings. People just go. They do their taxes. They crash their car. Oh, boring. Monsters literally shoot beams. That's way cooler.
Monsters don't care about bills.
Monsters don't care about bills. Monsters ain't got bills to pay. They probably do have some. They do a lot of destruction. They probably have they rake up a lot of fines. It's tough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Were you able to face everybody you wanted to face, or were there some character pairs that you wish you had gotten a chance to go at?
I really do wish I could have faced Caps Lock and Shift and Thran. I wish I could have faced Egg Dealer and you. Oh my god, that was I mean, I thought my character pairing was weird. You guys, it was insane.
Yeah. That became shockingly popular. I didn't expect it to be.
It's fantastic. It was so off the wall. Those initial fights are some of my favorites, definitely, of the tournament. Both of your guys' sides, but yeah, and then also I think in the initial round, Raji was initially going to be in the tournament, but he got cut, and I would have liked to fight him because for some reason I still haven't fought Raji yet. I'm just kind of baffled by that.
Yeah, I don't know if I fought him yet either.
3 years now. The guy does 1 billion comics every day. It's like I'm not fighting him. What's he doing?
Yeah, it's a surprise. You'd think he'd have fought everyone by this point.
Seriously.
So with round 3, you weren't able to complete it, but everybody was really interested in the direction you were taking that. And people were excited to know what happens next. Do you happen to know how the story ends? And if you do, could you enlighten us on what you had planned?
I do know. I feel bad. I feel bad saying it without ever doing anything. It was going to be epic. I mean, I said the whole story about it in my comment. It was brief, but I had finals, and I have a tendency to like fail classes due to void. Specifically in my, I remember like the first time I ever came to void, I was in the Ragnarok like tournament.
Right.
And that was this like grueling tournament, and I think I ended up failing 2 classes because of it in college, which is not good if you didn't know. So ever since then, now that I'm, back at college, I try to be a little more specific with the time I put. And so up to head to that, I spent too much time on finals, and then when it came back to doing the comic, the script was too ambitious. So it just kind of fell apart, but I do intend to I really do want to finish it. So I don't want to say too much about the conclusion.
Okay.
But it's pretty cool. And now that I'm unshackled from the limits of the 2-week, grip, maybe, who knows, maybe it'll be my best comic ever. I don't know.
Well,
probably not, but who knows?
I'm sure everyone is waiting with bated breath for it, regardless.
I'm sorry I couldn't give you the hot take, but I really would like to finish it. So.
If anything, that's a better answer, because we'll actually get to see for ourselves. So, Champion, winning a Void tournament, for a lot of people, that's seen as a form of graduation, kind of a show that you got what it takes to make it out in the world now. Are you going to be sticking around, or do you see your time on Void ending soon? What's next for you in the world of comics?
Well, I'm very happy to have won the tournament, but personally, I feel that I didn't give it my all, and even with the extraneous circumstances, in my mind, this isn't. I'm still a sophomore, So I still feel like I have another tournament that I've got to crush before I can really consider myself ready. So I'm definitely sticking around. Don't worry about it.
Cool.
I'm working on a comic right now with PETA, so I'm still sticking around.
Nice.
And that's what's going on for me. Just expect more comics. Yeah.
Are there any tips, insight, advice that you can give? Do you feel you can give to others? Any new artists who are coming in? Anyone who hopes to have a good tournament run themselves?
Time management. That's pretty much all it is. Managing your time. One thing I learned the hard way, but is as someone who writes out their comics before they do them, you have to learn how to write an effective script that you can do. Especially for me, like, my comic writing self is a dreamer. I'm writing like a 50-page comic, and I'm like, hey, it's gonna be the best comic ever. And then it comes down to doing it, and I'm like, cool, I have a week to do this giant script. And that you have to get that balance if you really want to win a tournament, in terms of having realistic expectations of what you're going to do, and knowing how to do it. And also, I think don't be afraid to bow out if you have to. I mean, honestly, I could have done more with my final round, but it just got to a point where I was very tired and just so drained. And when I say more, I mean like one more page, not the whole entire thing.
Right.
It's very grueling to be in a tournament, especially if you have a job or if you have school.
And for those of you listening at home, it's okay to bow out if you have to.
Yeah.
Even if it's a default, it's not the end of the world.
Yeah. Give it your all. Give it your all, but, don't kill yourself with a void. Don't kill yourself over anything, in terms of art. You have to be healthy to yourself. Stress is very nefarious, and it can really creep up on you when it comes to working a lot on art. Take a walk. That's what it's all about. When you feel like the stress is going on in a tournament, you take a walk outside, you pet a bird, you throw a baseball, have a good time. That's what I say. Yeah, pet a bird. I said that.
You said it. Pet a bird.
I said pet a bird. Don't do that. They'll peck you. You probably get some sort of awful disease and perish. Don't do that.
Yeah, birds are notoriously dirty.
Very dirty. Disgusting. By the way, Joni Mitchell. That was who did the song Blue.
Gotcha. Okay.
Took me a while. So you can keep that in because I did remember her name at the end.
Okay, that's good. That's good for the folks who were listening. Little Easter egg
folks who were listening.
At the end.
I bet they were screaming, "It's Blue! It's Joni Mitchell! God damn it!" They were yelling. They were throwing things, but it all came full circle.
Camel, thank you very much for this interview.
Thank you for interviewing me.
Yeah. And we're back. We hope you enjoyed that interview. We're going to be trying to get more interviews out for future tournament winners and for other prominent members and maybe even other artists in the industry.
Man, that Camel sure is something.
Wow, what a wonderful artist. Big fan. Give me your autograph.
Good voice.
We're going to move on now to the comic reviews. And we're starting tonight with Dhahiris versus Kindervampen.
Oh, I make comics.
You're always making a comic when you're up here.
Yeah.
In the cast. There's always one here to review from yours.
Maybe if you didn't make so many comics, Action King, please make more.
Yeah, it's just a testament to your productivity, which is, quite a feat, I think.
We're going to start with Astrodile's side. Here comes the recap. Werewolf Bruma and Vampire Monty, a pair of mercenary and odd job seekers, answered a call to volunteer watching a school of kindergarten vampires for the sake of helping Monty get more accustomed with his own kind. The Kindervampen caretaker, Courtney, steps out while Monty is playing with the children and notices Bruma transformed into a werewolf. Courtney's love of romance stories and werewolf fanfiction compels her to try and speak to Bruma up front. But before she can get a word in, Bruma sweeps her off her feet, lays on the charm, and then sinks his teeth into Courtney. A while later, Courtney returns to the Kindervampen, scarred, bloodied, and probably traumatized, as Monty throws a disapproving glare at Bruma, who is hiding in the shadows, showing off Courtney's broken glasses.
Alright, so as usual, this was an excellent comic. It was a decent page count, the colors were excellent, and the characters were excellent. I will say, though, I was not happy when we got to the bite, which isn't to say that it's anything about the characters or the comic. I just kind of hate seeing, like bad things happen. Yeah, so when I saw that, I'm like, man, I want to punch them with Johnny Cool. But that's what makes the comic great. That's what's interesting about these characters is you're establishing in this comic that there's some tone of it in the intro, but this comic kind of establishes that they're bounty hunters, but they're not really on the side of good. They're sort of, I guess, chaotic neutral, maybe. We haven't seen enough to really establish yet. But there's some interesting character work that's being done here. I'm definitely looking forward to more. I'm looking forward to them getting punched in the face. And I like to take on Desi's Kindervampen here, because there are quite a few of those characters. So it's definitely nice to see solid takes on all of them.
Yeah, I also really enjoyed this comic a lot, and of course, your colors are completely spot on, as always. I think they fit the move perfectly, and also the look into the two characters and how we know the Brumas perhaps a little more on the unpredictable and chaotic side. I'm glad that we get to see a little bit of the caretaker. I'm so bad at names.
Courtney.
Courtney. Thank you. And see a little bit of her fantasies, and since I have a feeling that on a lot of comics the kids are gonna be the center, because they are definitely the colorful pack. The only thing that I don't really understand is you showed me these pages when you just made them, and there's a point where the bites, I don't really understand the bites, because I remember when it was a work in progress, it was more of a oops, didn't really realize who I was actually biting. But then this also occurred to me that I don't quite understand why, and I guess it might be something that could be explained later, but that would be in a completely other comic, and I guess that's the only point where I'm just this story loses me a little bit.
I agree with that point.
Feels very sudden, and
I also felt that it wasn't very well explained what the situation was or why the bite occurred. But I also feel like maybe that's okay, just because we're still getting to know these characters, and that might be something about the character that we're learning, that they are kind of what's the word, capricious like that. They're whimsical. They're capricious, maybe. Because I have the opinion that not everything needs to be explained always, but I agree, it was a little unclear, the motivation for why things happen.
I think the part for me that was a little annoying for me, maybe, I wouldn't say annoying, but I can't really think of a better word at this point, that it felt, knowing that this is a scar match, it felt more of a scar just because it's a scar match and not because of something in the story. So it's to me, the explanation of the bite just became, oh, it's a scar match, so there gotta be some kind of scar, instead of anything that was built up or hinted at in the story.
I have the same praises as everyone else does, with the colors, with the characterization. The way Monty reacts to the children is adorable.
Yes.
Friggin' adorable. I have the same, I have some of the same issue with page 5 as well. For me, it was mostly that I had trouble understanding what exactly happened. And I think part of it was the placement of the images. I could be wrong here. I could be reading it incorrectly. It feels to me like the image of Bruma biting Courtney should come before the image of being dragged into the mausoleum. And I'm assuming that some time passed, but I feel like because of the way these panels are set up, it feels like time passed, but time didn't pass so quickly also. I just think page 5 needed a little more time to cook, and I think that would have made the rest of the comic perfect.
I actually thought that there was like shadow of the body getting dragged, and then a zoom in of what that looked like up close.
I think because of the stuttering of the H's, I sort of felt like that was a continuation of the stuttering from the previous.
Well, that is what we're meant to think, right? Because she is stuttering with the same H, and then it turns into the sound of her gagging on her blood or whatever.
Okay.
Like maybe some sound effects to eliminate the dragging part. Made that a little clearer.
Oh yeah. The dragging part. I think I got told. I think someone told me to make that part, to fix that part a little bit, and I didn't do enough. But anyways, okay. Thanks for the praise, you guys. I appreciate it, and I appreciate the critique as well. I think it's just a running issue with my writing in general, that I'm not good at being very direct with what's going on. And then with the situation of having this werewolf whose main personality trait is to always shut the fuck up, it makes it a little bit more difficult to kind of grasp what I should be doing with this character. But Wyatt mentioned that this was a scar because it was a scar match, and yeah, basically, I didn't really necessarily. I had other ideas that I wanted to use for the scar match, but they're all also following the same vein of I'm doing this scar because it's a scar match. And doing it, and I guess my excuse, but I can't really say this as an excuse, is because I only recently introduced these characters who I have not used previously at all. So it was a scar for the sake of a scar match. And because I was so focused on on just doing the scar and just getting that done and over with, I couldn't really focus on settling a story for these two and their relationship with the kindergarten kids. What else? I think that's about it. Yeah.
So what you're saying is we should interview more people when their comics are online to mess with them on VCast.
I mean, it works. It works. This is why I think that's like my third time getting like interviewed on VCast.
It's probably the fourth.
I know. I'm so tired.
You're like, no more.
I think Astrodile's been on here more than anyone else.
I know.
So far.
Just call me the co-host. But yes, thank you for the praise and thank you for the critiques. I appreciate it regardless.
Does anyone have anything else to say?
Just one last thing, and I think to have a character that doesn't say a lot would still. I mean, you could just have had what's the name of your vampire character?
Monty.
Thank you. You could just have said Monty say something like it's just a hint. You don't necessarily have to when explaining things or foreshadowing something. You don't necessarily have to cut it out on paper. Your intentions, just something along the lines of like Bruma, stay out of trouble, or don't come back covered in blood again, like something like that, where it's so we also get the sense. I know we also get the sense from the intro story, but that seems more like a bounty hunter thing, whereas this seems more like a Bruma might have a habit of just attacking any people in the vicinity as soon as they are in their wolf form. And I guess it would have tied it a little more together if it was kind of mentioned or foreshadowed a little earlier in the comic. But that might just be my taste.
No, I agree. I think there are, even with characters who are silent, there are still other ways of setting up a scene or establishing. It's just that you might need a little more breathing room. Like you might need a little bit more space to establish their action.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think given with the 1 week time period and with having to think about where to put the scar and all that, it just sort of got ahead of them.
1 week is a short time.
We're going to move on now to the next comic, the other side of this, made by Desi Chan. Here comes a recap. Monty is dropped off by Bruma at the Kindervampen to finish graduating kindergarten. It doesn't take long for the children to once again commandeer the curriculum, giving Courtney and Monty mad levels of anxiety with their antics. To make matters worse, one of the kids grabs a hold of a permanent marker and starts doodling over Monty's face and arms, leaving him with drawn-in freckles, a heart mark, and little bat drawings permanently stuck to his body. Not missing a beat, the kids drag Monty away for more playtime.
All right, so this was definitely a cute comic, and even the scar was cute, as expected from Desi. If anyone can come up with a way to cutify like scar matches, it would be Desi. Something that I did notice that was that Desi seems to be improving in their paneling. There's a lot of interesting and creative panels in this comic that I think exceed anything that they've worked on before. I also like the I don't know how to describe it, the scratchy borders of the panels. It meshes well with their style. And something that I think Desi is surprisingly good at is translating other characters to their style. Because honestly, Desi's style is so unique on the site that I would think it a challenge to translate, like all of her opponents. But Desi continues to do that well. My other thing is Desi continues to have challenges as far as perspective and backgrounds. So I would still tell her to continue to focus on those. The style of the comic reminds me very much of the Korean webtoons. I don't know if that's something that she is starting to adapt, because these are both very long-form comics. So it does seem very webtoon-like. But yeah, like I was saying, the colors are great. The story is funny and fun. And the paneling is certainly very creative. So good job.
I was really digging this entry, and throughout all of the comics I've read prior to Void and on Void and stuff, with people beating each other up and leaving scars and stuff like that, I was so pleasantly delighted by the scar. I have to say that was such a surprise, and I was like, yes, fuck yeah. Yes, I think it's so cute, and it's very refreshing, in my opinion, and I was very happy to see that kind of change from what I've read before. And I also really enjoyed the color palette that she chose, and kept throughout the whole comic. That just keeps everything tied really well together. The only thing that I kind of have is that there's times in this comic where I'm not sure exactly what's going on. And sometimes characters are just doing something, and I don't know why. I don't exactly. It's just, and there are times where the things that they say, just feels like cut in very used, like, what's it called? When you just have texts, just to have something.
Filler?
Yeah, or like stand-in texts.
Yeah, I think
where
it's
it's something like, yeah, this is what they're supposed to say, something along these lines, but it's not really connecting to the story or to what's happening. Like, it's, yeah. Some of the things that they say are just very used. Like, for instance, so what do we have here? And of course, it gives sort of an intention of this character, but it also feels like I don't really get to know this character by the use of this, because it doesn't feel personal. But all in all, I really enjoyed this a lot. It was a very nice read.
I just want to say I was fucking laughing throughout the comic. I just love the writing and this shit. I love the idea that Monty had to go back to fucking kindergarten because he did complete kindergarten like an idiot, like a 2-year-old idiot.
Yeah, that was really good.
Madison.
I like the idea of just Brahma being like, okay, you take care of the kid. Bye. And then just leaves. I like the interactions here. I think they're very cute. All I have are compliments because I really like this comic a lot. And like as the others have said, like your ability to transfer like other characters into your style is really, really good. Like it flows really easily. Like Brahma, Bruhaha, we don't know at this point. But Brahma, I still fucking struggle with drawing that dude, but you made him look really good in his style, and all of this is cute. This scar is really good. He really got tattooed with permanent marker, and I can't believe Monty's an idiot, which is, well, that's okay. All my OCs are kind of dumb, but thank you so much for battling me as well. Didn't really expect anyone to take up my dashed offer of someone scar match me for a week, but in the end, I'm happy that you took it up, Desi, and I hope we can do more stuff with your vampires and my vampire and my werewolf again, because it's fun. I want to do more stuff with them.
Yeah, Desi, this comic was a lot of fun. It's cute. I agree with what everyone was saying, including the part, however, where it sometimes was hard to figure out what was going on for me. I did have to reread it a few times myself to really understand what was happening. So, sometimes it's the panels that I don't quite get what's happening, or sometimes it's the way the dialogue sometimes feels like it's disjointed. Or sort of like how Wirecat was saying, that sometimes things are just being said in order to move the plot along, rather than it being what the character may actually say in that situation.
You're way better at explaining it than I am. That's exactly.
That's something you'll figure out with time as you keep working on these characters and keep making comics with other folks. And keep making comics with characters that are sort of outside your comfort zone also helps you practice getting the lines and characterization good like that. Anyone else have anything else to say?
I'm sorry, Courtney.
She'll be fine.
I'm so sorry, Courtney.
Yeah, congratulations, Astro and Desi Chan. These were great comics, and we can't wait to see the ones you make next. Can't wait to have you back here, Astrodile, for the next comic when you make it.
Once my family unbans me.
We're moving on now to the Beyond Battle of Virtua, made by Mr. MRPR. This is the 8-Bit Council, and here comes the recap. Virtua is visited by a tiny blue elf who seems to come from the same digital world as hers. This member of the 8-Bit Council warns Virtua that the dreaded Polyclops are still running amok in this universe, and her failure to exterminate them has drawn the ire of the Council. After an impressive show of power, the Council member implores Virtua to finish her mission, lest she be taken back to the digital world by force.
Okay. Really did I think the part of the comic that got me surprised the most was when Virtua was like, I liked talking about myself in third person. I was like, oh shit, she was using the word I, and I never noticed. I think the comic's interesting. I think it shows a lot more about Virtua than shown previously. A lot more story progress to me, and another chance to grab my interest in her again and just kind of read back in her archives. I like the design of the little dude. Lil, I don't know their name, but they're really cute. I think my main critique is just to really like start putting more oomph into your backgrounds. Like your characters are fine. Their faces are always like funny, especially on page 2 and its last panel. That's my favorite. But your backgrounds really can kill the tension because there's not a lot going on in it. There's not a lot of personality to see in them. And it can really take me out of the situation when they're in a pretty plain looking location. But other than that, really looking forward to seeing more of Virtua's story. Hold on. Is that just Donkey Kong on page 5? Is that just Donkey Kong-esque design on the top left? I remember first reading that and being like, is that Donkey Kong?
I was kind of wondering that about all of the characters.
Yeah,
I was wondering if they were all based on something.
Yeah, I think it feels like they're all based off some kind of video game character. I think I see a Samus. There's someone there with a Yoshi nose.
I kind of want to say the guy in the middle is like old Mario.
Yeah, like some kind of Brolic wizard Mario.
I think just seeing a semi Donkey Kong made like threw me off, but like in a good way. I was like, holy shit, Donkey Kong, you're here. But I think that's just about it. I just really want to see you work a lot more with your backgrounds because I really do think that you have the skill to do it, but it's just not showing.
Okay, so I guess that means my turn.
Yes.
So yes, I perfectly agree with what's been said. The backgrounds definitely need a lot more love. And this because the whole comic already has a lot of detail. Even when we see the virtual like world or whatever with all these complex shapes, like that's what a background is, complex shapes. And really, there wouldn't be much of a difference. Well, there wouldn't be much effort to change what you have there into actual backgrounds. So there's definitely a stark difference between what you, because Virtua herself also has a lot of like interesting details as well. Like you're definitely very comfortable with drawing Virtua doing her thing, but everything else in the comic is a little awkward. Like for example, page 4, when that truck or whatever is like smashed, it's so simple and undetailed. It doesn't really look like a crashed car. It doesn't really come off that way. So there's definitely parts where you're skipping a little too much and concentrating too much detail on other parts. And these are things that will come with practice, like everything else. Just continue to push yourself as far as like backgrounds. As far as font, I'd like it if you shrunk the font a little bit. It's a little too tight with the balloons. They're like squeezing in a little bit too much. It's interesting to me. I'm one of the few artists on the site that uses a lot of like pixelated art, right? Or I imagine you're using the pencil tool to do all of your drawing. But I just feel like you can push yourself to the next level, and there's hints that you're able to do that, and you're just not wanting to yet. So, push yourself. But like what Astro also said, I'm also excited that you've taken the time to establish more Virtua story, because for a while now, Virtua hasn't had much of a story aside from video game character who's just kind of hanging about in void. So it's interesting to see that this new story direction, and I'm glad you submitted a BB. So you should be proud of the effort that you've made.
I also think that this was very interesting. I said before, to get a little window into Virtua and her story, and also get a little bit of drama in what she's doing, and have a little tension and a time limit for her, which I'm interested in seeing how it's gonna unfold. I'm really enjoying the movement and the action that you have. I agree that a little more details, maybe some lines, some speed lines, or some more destructed or smashed parts. Either for like, there's the wall that gets smashed, there's the truck that gets smashed, and then the ground that gets smashed. The action and the movement is very strong, but I think could be even stronger. Or no, it's maybe not the movie, it's the impact that feels very strong. But I would have liked to see more of a little bit of the movement that happened before that impact. And I'm okay with the simple backgrounds. For instance, page 3 feels very, but then again, there are some panels where it's a little too simple. There's a little too much space. I think page 3, panel 1 is like a really, really good balance, especially with where you put the speech bubbles, because they kind of give, like, if you had stuff in the background there, it would take focus away from the speech bubble. But because they're there, it's really nice that it's not cluttered with a lot of details. And I thought it was a very nice read.
MRPR, I think what's going on with this comic is a bit of a roller coaster in terms of quality, especially with your backgrounds. If you go to page 1, you've got a panel where you go as far as to have even some wooden texturing on the floor, but then you go to the next page and everything outside is very haphazard by comparison, with blocks and very simple destruction, very quick and reckless stuff. Then you go to a next page and you see good stuff, but then you go to the page after and it sort of continues on and on like that. There's good panels and then there's not so good panels. So with the Beyond battle, unless there's some really pressing time limit that you've got for some reason, you should try to give each of the panels your all if you're able to. That's something I would recommend for your next Beyond battle, to just take the time to make sure that each panel looks as good as the previous, and each panel forward will look good as well. Does anyone have anything else to say?
Please give us more Virtua. Please. On my knees. Please, Mr. PR.
Fight her, Astro. That's how you get more Virtua.
There's a lot of people I could fight. There is.
Yeah. And Virtua could be one of them.
But if I fight any people, you know who's actually going to fight me? My family.
They're going to fight you in a void battle. We challenge you.
They're going to put me in a death match.
Oh my god. That's tough, man.
Congratulations on the comic, MRPR, and can't wait to see where this story continues for Virtua. Moving on to the final battle. This is Gossamer Swan versus Kojiro by the artists J-Cat and AJ. We'll start with Gossamer Swan's side. Here's the recap. Longtime allies and crime-fighting colleagues, Gossamer Swan and Kojiro catch up on a rooftop at night. Kojiro is planning on putting together a new vigilante team, like the one they were both once part of, and wants Swan to join him. Swan declines the offer, preferring to work alone. Before leaving, Kojiro tosses a special communicator to Swan, just in case she changes her mind.
Okay, it's my turn. I can go.
Yes, go.
Okay. Okay, Gossamer Swan. This is a solid comic. Even though there's not much going on, as others in the comments have said, but I think it's good because this is just a predecessor to more of Swan's development, and I'm enjoying that you're returning to work on Swan's personal dealings of her work life and how she's going about changing it, what she's doing. And I find it really interesting and makes me want to see more of her in the future. As always, your line art and your coloring is pretty solid. Like, it's really hard to say what's bad about this because really everything's good. Those first two establishing shots on page 1 are my favorite. And just the end note of Kojiro giving her the coin and being like, hey, just in case. I also love that as well. I think if there's one thing I can note, is to just watch out for your eye proportions, especially for how do you say this?
The what?
Okay, basically just look at your eye proportions, because on page 1, Swan in both of those panels, the eye, oh my god, how do you say this? The
sclera? Which
it's like, because it's, when they're doing the 3/4 view, and then it's the eye that is not the focus, so it's a little more cut out.
Oh, the one that's further away. Yeah, I gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
That is a different one to pull off in a 3/4 view, yeah.
Yeah. It's like it's not much of a problem, and it's not really like disconcerting. I just want to throw it out there that that eye that is not the focus, it's a little too small and sometimes a little too high up. Just like a little. Like, literally, this is the most nitpick thing I could say, because this comic is otherwise really good. Like, you could just ignore this and I'd be like, you know what, that's fine. But all in all, this is a really solid comic. I hope to see more of Swan in the future, and hope to see more of your art in the future.
All right, so yes, I will also echo that this is an excellent comic. J-Cat has always been an excellent artist, and I am glad to see you continue to push yourself. I say that because I've noticed that, I'd have to compare it to whatever your last entry was, but I don't remember you using textures as much, and I like a lot of the cross-hatching in the background, all the different texture, and you're combining some of that cross-hatching with some digital shading, which is interesting. It's interesting because it actually blends well together. Like, I don't see it clash as much, because usually those are things that don't go together. Like, usually either cross-hatch, you got a little of both going on, and it actually meshes quite well together. The layout and compositions are quite beautiful. Let's say, the line work gets a little shaky here and there, but those are like nitpicks. Yeah, so I think this comic works very well as a prologue of what's to come. By itself, it isn't very meaty, but I myself also can't wait to see what happens next.
I also agree with a lot of the points that have been put up here by the others. I think this is a very short and sweet, and I think it's doing exactly what it needs to do, and I think you just completely nailed it on the head. I think like the story is very standard in a way that it's been used a lot, but because I care for Swan and her past and future, I think it has a little more oomph, a little more kind of spark of interest, but in terms of like creativity or bringing anything new to the table, or taking chances, I'm not sure. I think it's a very safe, good comic, but it's super well done. So I have nothing but that to say.
J-Cat, as far as visuals go, this comic's pretty much an A in my book. You do everything pretty good here. You got some great establishing shot backgrounds, great looking buildings. As far as the story, as everyone said, it's a little light and not much happens. I think for me, it felt less impactful simply because just from what I've been reading about Gossamer Swan and the Discord channels and whatnot, I kind of already knew that this was a situation she was already in. I already knew that she was going lone wolf and stuff, so nothing here really surprised me. But it's good that there's a little step of progress. It's good that there's a little step of progress here with this thing that Kojiro's cooking up. And if that's something that you guys are talking about for future stories, that'd be really interesting to see up ahead. We're going to move on to AJ's side. Here's the recap. One day, Kojiro finds himself being ambushed by a trio of androids who share a mysterious connection with his old ally, Sunny Del Salvador. The fight is sent right through a building wall and into Gossamer Swan's apartment. Quick pleasantries are exchanged before Swan and Kojiro prepare to fight off the machines.
Okay, it's my turn. Here I go. Yes. Kojiro, AJ, I accidentally called you by your character's name. Don't mind that. Well, it's nice. I just want to say it's nice to see you make comics every now and then, and like your content always gives me very, very, very like the strongest vibes of Old Void, especially with your line art and your art style. And by the way, your line art is very, very tasteful. Like I absolutely love page 2 with him falling from the sky. I love the way that you draw these actions that are going on. The posing is great. And this comic has some pretty neat visuals overall, like a lot of dynamic shots, and I absolutely love it. I already know, I mean, I'm reading your comment right now, haha, but I know that you understand that there were consequences to you using the 3D generated backgrounds to fill in the panels of the building panels of your comic. And, so I'm not going to really pick on that. But I am going to mention that it might make it less obvious and less obtuse if you change the color. Like, what I mean is that on page 2, in the first panel, the 3D building's white. So when I first looked at that, I was like, oh boy. And then when I get to the last panel in page 2, I completely didn't really realize that you were still using that 3D program for the background, because it was blending in with the rest of the background in terms of color scheme. So those pixelated lines did not really stick out as much and did not bother me as much. Your style when it comes to drawing women it's not bad. It's pretty good. Like you have your poses are great and all, but I just want to mention that I kind of feel like the little panty shot here and there I found just kind of out of left field, just kind of there for no reason. Like page 4, when she's like, on guard, I'll fight you. It's me, Gossamer Swan. And she's making this pose like she's ready to fight, but then I see her panties and I'm like, ma'am, your coochie is showing. So it really took me out of it, and I can understand that one weekers can be really, really stressful. So I can understand when anatomy and poses and faces can get a little awkward. Not to say that it was awkward here, but just a little nitpick is that Gossamer Swan's face is very similar to the enemy lady's face. Like page 4, that colored in panel, and then the last panel of page 4, they look pretty similar outside of the lip piercing that the enemy has and the thing that's going on with her pupils. They even have the same nose going on. So, and this kind of very similar face shape. So please watch out for that. Also, the enemy girl's ear is a little high as well. I kind of wish that he didn't really airbrush these colors on for certain panels, even if like certain panels were your strongest ones, such as in page 4 once again. I feel like the airbrushing really took me out of the situation because the airbrushing felt kind of slapped on per se. So I don't say this with offense. I say this in a way where it's like, I really, really love your line art. And I think this is just one of those situations where your line art is so filling for this situation that color schemes do not really add any more tension to what's going on, but rather take me out, especially when the other panels are not colored in. And on an initial read, in terms of writing, I was kind of like in and out of this situation because I was like, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what these characters are referencing. I haven't read any of Sunny Del Salvador's archive yet. I haven't read any of Kojiro's archive yet. So I was a bit out of it with the situation and a bit disconnected. But I personally take it as good incentive for myself to just kind of read through these old characters' archives to get what's going on. Which is to say that a new reader like me could get easily lost and easily detached. But this personally it motivated me to want to go back and read. But all in all, great stuff. Please give us more comics because I'm hoping to see from you and your wonderful art. And that's about it.
All right, so I'm always excited to see people who have lapsed, like always, like come back. So I'm glad you're back, AJ. I'm glad you're still doing your thing. Kojiro's a cool character, and I also like your style is also much different from what we expect from Void. It's definitely got a different vibe to it that's not common to Void, especially nowadays. And like Astro was saying, there's that old Void kind of vibe because of the influence that people had back then. And, you're taking from some of those mainstream influences as well. I would certainly like to see you push a little more. Like, your line work is already very detailed, so I can understand that it's probably very time-consuming for you. I who have difficulty with that myself, completing comics, because I also have a very detailed style myself. But I would also like to see you push a little more to complete your comic in another way. Like Astro brought up, the airbrush colors weren't really doing it for me, and it kind of clashes with your line art. It doesn't do it much justice to highlight or whatever. But I understand that you used it in order to separate stuff out. The 3D backgrounds, that is definitely a technique that like some comic artists do use, especially like Japanese manga artists, and there are people who use that. But my suggestion would be not to rely on it so much. In order to just build up your own skills, use that as a reference, something for you to draw from. But don't just stick it onto the comic itself. Like, even draw over it, as some artists tend to do that. Some artists will take like pictures, will use the 3D backgrounds, and they will draw over it so that it feels more in tune with their own art style. Because right now, it has that obvious 3D look, so it looks out of place. And the one that looks out of place is the building that's in gray. Like the other building, you probably won't even notice as much because it's so much part of the background. That one's like perfectly fine. But the first one, the gray building, definitely looks out of place, especially compared to the floating island that's like in the background, which I'm assuming is Calum. But and also your line work, because your line work is so detailed, it is often difficult to separate things out, especially because you draw everything with a thin line. So like page 3, where Kojiro is fighting with the cyborg lady, and they're all kind of like wrapped into each other. At first glance, it's a bit of a confusing scene. So my advice would be, use line width, different things to separate the characters out from each other, because that's something to be careful of, especially when you're just working in black and white, to make sure that figures don't blend in to each other. Because otherwise you have awesome details, you are great with action, I liked all of that. Page 4 was your weakest, as Astro was saying, there's a lot of like details that probably due to time or whatever were a bit difficult, and the airbrushing again doesn't really work. But I like that you guys are trying to build something here. It's obvious that you guys are trying to build something, especially in JCat's story, trying to build a team, and in this story. And I was surprised actually that you were wrapping in Sunny's storyline. I'm actually curious as to whether you have plans with Ernesto to do that, or if you guys are just doing that on your own. I'm curious about that, because you do say like, the next part is going to be Kojiro and Sunny Del Salvador. So, but I'm definitely looking forward to what you guys are building. So yes, more Kojiro comics. Thank you.
I think it's very clear in this. First of all, I'm a huge fan of your line work as well. I think it when it shines, it really shines. I love it a lot. Even though I do agree that it would be nice also to see you play around with either with blacks and shadows, or some more line width. And then I think to me at least, what I gathered from this is very, very clear to see what you like to draw and what you. I don't know if it's due to the time and the time limit and time problems, or if it's just simply a result of what you've been drawing throughout your time. But it to me it's very clear that there are some things that look really great, look really well, that are most likely the things that you really enjoy to draw, and then there are other parts that just completely crumbles and doesn't like, it looks nothing like the parts that really work, where it's like, is this even the same artist? Because it's just such a big contrast. And it would be nice to see a comic where it's kind of the same look throughout, and the same kind of attention and training done on the different parts. Like your wings, beautiful scales and dragon-esque features. Wow, yes. Faces, not so much. It would be I lose a little bit of the intense action and feeling of these characters when their faces just kind of jumble around and don't work out. And also sometimes your hands are not really like giving you like English is hard, kids. It's not doing you a favor, is what I'm trying to say. And I guess reference pictures and stuff like that would be really good. But it's just I see some of the stuff, especially on page 2 and page 3, that just looks amazing. And then to compare it to some of the other parts of the comic, I just want everything to look like that because it looks freaking good. Like I want to eat that shit up.
Are you clapping as you speak?
That it just what?
Are you clapping as you speak?
Yes. Yes, I am. It's to really punch in my.
The clapping means that you want these parts cut.
No. Oh yeah. Well, I'm sorry, Pyrasterran. I'm sorry.
No. It's not gonna happen. It's just funny to hear.
It's just I've got really excited and really into it through like page 2 and page 3, and then as been said before, your weakest page is page 4. It was just sad to see, I think, but I like the action and the effects. You have definitely got smoke effects down. That looks amazing. Good work, friend.
AJ, you, as you already know, this comic is not completed, so there are probably some things that we've said that you already know about. I'll say some things that I think you should try to take into account and use for your next comic. One thing I would say first is to try not bothering with colors for the next comic. Try to make it all black and white, and instead of adding colors, try to focus on your line width, like William Duel was saying, to help differentiate your models with your backgrounds and your characters with each other whenever they're wrestling with each other. The other thing I would say is to try your hardest to break out of the mold that you currently have with female characters. They are looking very samey in the face and in the body types. Gossamer Swan in particular has a very pronounced aquiline nose that is even part of a gag in the previous comic. So that's something that you want to pay attention to improve to improve on the character designs of your own, so that things don't start looking too samey. As far as the SketchUp buildings, if you have to resort to using them, definitely find ways to blend them in so that they don't become noticeable like they are for the first panel. Go ahead and add in your own texture to them if you don't have time to draw over them, or do what you did with the other some of the other SketchUp buildings here, and just lay them out in a way where they don't become noticeable. Make sure that when you're pulling them in, make sure that you're getting them at a good enough resolution so that they don't cause this aliasing effect that gives them away, so to speak. For those that are here that don't know, and for those who are listening that don't know, and here's a quick recap of a lot of stuff that's been going on with these two characters. Gossamer, Swan, and Kojiro, and Sunny de Salvador, who's referenced in this comic. All three of them used to fight crime alongside Arena many, many, many years ago, before even the comet. So that's where all this interaction is coming from. AJ in particular had a bit of a time gap of activity, so he's bringing a lot of that old history back in here. And from the looks of it in the comments, it looks like he is actually planning something with Ernesto, who owns Sunny del Salvador. So it would be really neat to see those characters back.
That's cool.
I'm looking forward to that, at least.
Yeah, more good line art. Very tasty line art.
I think this whole time you just want to eat the comic.
You're right. I'm actually eating the comic right now. Thank you.
Just a little bit of ketchup, some salt.
I
Yeah,
didn't even know you had a printer.
I always had a printer.
A printer of the heart.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, William. Thank you.
Oh, I didn't think we would get all poetic in this podcast. Amazing. I'm touched to tears.
That concludes the reviews for today, and that concludes the episode.
Yay!
I want to thank my guests, Astrodile.
Help! My family has trapped me. I can't do comics. Help!
Thanks also to William Duel
Hey.
and to Wirecat.
Any day time. And wow. Holy shit. Wow. I'm tired.
English is hard, people.
It's late. It's 6 a.m. We all up here at 6 a.m. can't speak. I had a good time. It's bad.
This has been your host, Pyrasterran. We'll see you next time.
Yay! Help me.
Yay.